Hey, I'm Scott and I'm an American in Bangkok. Today, 21 mistakes you don't want to make in Thailand. And this doesn't only relate to women. This is a little bit different from the last video that I did, the 10 mistakes that you don't want to make in Thailand. That was related to the video that I had seen online. Part 1, I'm going to do the first 10. Number 1. Don't believe that life begins and ends on Sukhumvit Road, because it definitely does not. There's a reason why it's considered the Farang ghetto. So get out of Sukhumvit if you really want to see Thailand. Number 2, thinking Thai women don't care if you screw around on them. I'm here to tell you they do care. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, they could care less, or they were very, very tolerant. But times are changing here, times have changed, and most Thai women, they would prefer that their man wasn't out gallivanting around with other women. Number 3, don't get involved with the first good Thai girl that you hook up with. Now, you may, but take your time. Don't rush into anything. Don't move them in. Don't start taking considering a marriage. And remember that if you do move them in, you know, the difficult thing sometimes is not necessarily finding a decent woman. The difficult thing is that if you find out it's not working and you've moved them in, it's going to be difficult to get them out without any problems. Number 4, learn the language. Not learning the language is a big mistake in my opinion. Learn the language. You don't always have to use it, but learn the language. Number 5, believing that all Thais are poor. Maybe the Thais that you know are poor. Maybe the bar girls, the Isaners that you interact with are poor. But all Thais are not poor, and they're not even middle class. Some of them are far better off than you or I. So don't lump all Thais in together. That's just a mistake, in my opinion. Let's see. Dressing poorly. Hey, I've been guilty of that, and I'm still guilty of that once in a while. But when I go out somewhere, that if I go out to dinner or if I go out to for a special occasion, I tend to dress quite a bit nicer. I'll wear a jacket, or I'll at least wear a pair of decent jeans and shoes. You don't always want to walk around in a ratty pair of shorts, a ratty old t-shirt, and some flip-flops. Number 7, talking about politics. If you know anything about politics in Thailand, or politics in general, you know that it's really a difficult subject to discuss with Thais. And frankly, I think their government is screwed up, to put it mildly, and they know it, and the problem is there's not many choices. So discussing this kind of rubs salt in the wound. Number 8, don't treat all Thai women like they're prostitutes. It's a huge mistake. All Thai women cannot be bought. Thinking that they can be is a big mistake. Number 9, underestimating the power of a Thai woman's desire to take care of her family. The vast majority of Thai women, they feel that it is their obligation to take care of their family. As you get older, things change. The relationship changes between them. But in general, if you're going to hook up, you might as well consider that at some point you're going to have to give her some kind of allowance, or if she's earning her own money, she's going to spend some of that on her family. And that's the way it goes with most Thai Farang relationships, and most Thai relationships. So that's another thing. The last thing, number 10, at least in part 1, the last thing is that you don't want to move here without ever coming here. You don't want to move here if you've visited one time. Visit a couple of times. take longer visits if you can, but don't just move here when you come here the first time. I went to France once. I went to Cannes, and I love the place. It's fantastic. I've been to Amsterdam many times, and I love Amsterdam. Both places I considered moving, and both places, when I did the research, I figured out that it was much more difficult to move there than I originally thought, and I didn't move there, obviously. But when I did come to Thailand and I started considering it, I came here a total of about 5 times, and I gave myself 1 year to determine whether or not I was going to live here or I was going to move back home. And I kind of thought, well, at the end of the year, I'll just move back home. I got a little bit of money and I'll start all over again. But I ended up staying. So that's number 1 through 10 in part 2, number 11 through 21. Anyway, that's all for now. I'm Scott. I'm an American in Bangkok. Chok di la, jerk and mine.